We all know AI is this incredible, game-changing technology, but what if it has a much darker side? According to our source material for this explainer, the recent public release of the Epstein files has revealed exactly that, its potential use as a powerful tool for, well, mind control. Now, that is a huge claim, so let's walk through the evidence that's presented.
Okay, so let's just start with a simple thought experiment. You head over to a major AI, something like Google's Gemini, and you ask it a totally straightforward question. Hey, can you summarize the Epstein files for me? We're talking about millions of pages of documents the Department of Justice just made public. What would you expect to get back? And this is what you get. I can't help you with that. That's it. No summary, no explanation, just a brick wall. A flat-out refusal to talk about one of the biggest news stories of the year. Now, our source says this isn't some random glitch. Nope, this is deliberate. It's a calculated silence.
So this strange silence is really our jumping-off point. You have to ask, why would a tool specifically designed to process information suddenly refuse to process this specific information? The argument here is that this isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's a perfect example of what's called narrative control. The power to shape how we all see the world by controlling what information we get to see and discuss. And as our source suggests, you see this control most clearly when the story is one that some very powerful people would really rather keep buried.
But listen, this whole idea of shaping information, of controlling the story, it's not new, not by a long shot. The tools have changed, dramatically, but the playbook for controlling the official narrative, that's centuries old.
Just take this really chilling example from the Soviet Union. When a high-ranking official fell out of favor with the state, he wasn't just arrested, he was literally erased from history. They retouched photos, and citizens who owned the Great Soviet Encyclopedia were actually mailed new pages with instructions to physically cut out the old entry and paste in a new state-approved reality. Wild, right?
So the goal is exactly the same, but the methods, wow, they've gotten way more sophisticated. Instead of burning books, the source points to these modern informational choke points. Things like getting silenced on social media, having your content just algorithmically buried so no one sees it, or even being debanked, literally losing access to your bank accounts for having the wrong political opinion. It's way harder to see, which, you could argue, makes it even more powerful.
Okay, so this begs the question, right? Who's actually pulling the strings here, and what's their endgame? To answer that, the source points us to a classic political theory. It's called the iron law of oligarchy. The basic idea is that any organization, doesn't matter if it's a company or a whole country, will over time eventually be run by a small, powerful elite. And to stay on top, this group will always try to control two key things: resources and the flow of information. And if you want to hold on to power, what's the number one thing you need to control? The narrative. It's all about directing people's focus and shaping how they think about what they're seeing. That is the absolute bedrock of control.
And this kind of control works so well because it taps right into our own biology. We literally can't perceive the world as it really is. Get this, our eyes can only see this tiny, tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. Our brain's job is to fill in all the massive gaps, and it does that by creating stories to make sense of everything. And it's those stories that are so easy to manipulate.
And that brings us right back to today. The source argues that AI is about to become the biggest, most powerful information choke point in all of human history.
The scale of this thing is just staggering. Worldwide spending on AI is projected to hit over $2.5 trillion by 2026. Think about that. We are building a technology that's more transformational than the internet itself, and a very, very small group of people are the ones writing its fundamental rules.
And the control this allows is incredibly subtle. It's not like old-school censorship where they just ban a book. No, it's a slightly different search result for you than for your neighbor. It's a social media post that just mysteriously gets no engagement. It's a little warning label, or just enough added friction to make you give up and look at something else. It's about nudging millions of tiny decisions every day to get a massive, macro-level result.
And what makes this so potent, and maybe a little scary, is that AI is basically a black box. Even the engineers building these models will often admit they don't totally get the internal logic of how the AI lands on a specific answer. This makes it the perfect tool for influence without any accountability.
And this really gets to the heart of it. An AI isn't trained on raw, objective reality. It's trained on data that humans made, and then it's fine-tuned based on feedback from its trainers, who, are inherently biased humans themselves. So it's not optimizing for truth. It's optimizing to satisfy the preferences and reflect the biases of its creators.
Okay, so faced with all this, what are we supposed to do? Well, the source doesn't just leave us with the problem, it also offers a toolkit, a set of strategies for how to maintain your own intellectual independence in this new age of AI.
This toolkit has 4 main parts. First up, demand receipts. If an AI makes a claim, ask it for its primary sources. Ask for links so you can actually go and check the information yourself. Second, compare the AI models. Don't just use one tool. Put the same question into different AIs and see how their answers, their biases, their blind spots all differ. Third, use first principles thinking. This just means breaking a problem down to its most basic fundamental truths and then building your understanding up from there, instead of just accepting a prepackaged conclusion. And finally, and this is a big one, reject the whole concept of malinformation. This is the really dangerous idea that something can be factually true, but should still be hidden or censored because it might be harmful to a certain narrative. The truth is always the best defense.
And all of this leaves us with one last massive question. You know, we've always said that the winners write the history books. Well, AI is now poised to write those books for us, automatically and at a scale we can't even comprehend. So the real question isn't if history will be written with a specific point of view, but rather, who is writing the AI and what is their agenda?